Alison Sargent joins me on the set for the press review today. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Jeannie.
Lots of focus on that NATO summit in Brussels where Western allies took a more confrontational stance against China.
Yeah, it's a landmark shift and a win for Joe Biden. That's according to the Washington Post. The paper writes that this shifting of NATO's attention to China is just an extension of the theme of Biden's European trip after he also tried to sharpen China-related discussions over the weekend at the G7 summit. The paper notes that just a few years ago, talk of China was nearly non-existent at NATO. But now, as Belgian paper Le Soir puts it, Biden and the rest of the allies have shown China their teeth. The paper cites the NATO communique, which expressed concerns about China's declared ambitions and assertiveness, as well as its growing arsenal of nuclear weapons. But not all NATO members want such a confrontational stance against China. According to French website Mediapart, Joe Biden led reluctant Europeans into a united front against China. The website writes that when it comes to China, Biden is very much like his predecessor, Donald Trump, except instead of the bulldog method, he's pushing for a collective response from the G7, NATO, and the EU.
Now, interestingly, there are similar arguments coming from Chinese papers.
Yeah, Chinese papers are also saying that this aggression is coming first and foremost from the United States, an idea that's illustrated quite well in this China Daily cartoon by Kai Meng, the U.S. leading the charge against China, while other leaders look pretty uninterested. French magazine The Courrier International, meanwhile, has reprinted an article from Chinese paper The Hongqi Shibao, accusing the U.S. of trying to provoke a crisis in the Asia-Pacific region. The writer notes that the U.S. has recently been sending warships into the South China Sea, creating a potential for conflict that is illustrated by the accompanying cartoon here, the U.S. sort of awakening China, the sleeping dragon. This writer says, quote, "What you have to understand is that the United States is a country that has developed thanks to crises and wars that it started and overcame. That's how the national character and diplomatic tradition was formed."
Now, China and the U.S. have also been at odds over the possibility that the coronavirus accidentally leaked from a lab in Wuhan. And the New York Times has done a rare interview with the lab's chief scientist.
Yeah, the New York Times was able to contact her briefly by telephone and then exchanged emails with her. They write that she could barely contain her frustration over these claims that the virus could have accidentally come from her lab. She denied, notably, those recent reports from the Wall Street Journal that found that employees of the lab were sick with COVID-like symptoms in the weeks leading up to the initial outbreak. She said that wasn't the case. She also said, "How on earth can I offer evidence for something where there is no evidence?" And she said that the world was pouring filth onto an innocent scientist. This article certainly doesn't have any conclusions about that lab leak theory, but it is new food for thought.
All right, let's head now to New Zealand, where there's been controversy surrounding a film project that would be about the 2019 Christchurch mosque attack.
Yeah, one of the film's producers has now actually pulled out of that project over this controversy. The New Zealand paper The Press explains that this movie, titled They Are Us, would focus on the Prime Minister, Jacinda Arden, and her response to the attack. But it's been met with outrage by many victims' families and New Zealand's Muslim community, who say that it's too soon for a movie like this. It's also been criticized for having a white savior narrative because it's centered around Ardern instead of around the victims. Jacinda Arden herself has said she opposes this film project. And as The Guardian reports here, she's also distancing herself from a new biography about her that's coming out. Ardern says that she agreed to do interviews on the premise that this was going to be about multiple female leaders. In the end, though, it was just about her. What's interesting about both of these stories is that in both cases, Ardern is really having to fight against being given too much positive press attention. The Guardian notes that the presentations of Ardern in international media, which are often glowing, have really been coming under particular scrutiny for her back home in New Zealand.
All right, we're going to wrap up now with a look at the British papers and how they've been reacting to this new 4-week delay on England's reopening.
Yeah, it was supposed to be on June 21st. Now it is definitely on July 19th, unless it's not. That's the front page headline from the Daily Telegraph today. because, of course, Boris Johnson has not ruled out further delays. Exasperation is really growing in the British tabloids. The Sun is asking, will we ever be free? And then finally, the Daily Star tells readers to hold the pina coladas, put those celebratory drinks back in the fridge for now. The paper notes that to cap it all off, the heat wave is ending and Britain is going to be getting rain in the coming days. I guess the bright side is maybe that will make it easier to stay home.
And cooler?
Yeah.
All right, Allison, thank you so much for that. Allison Sargent.